Hi everyone, this is Shivika, your presenter for the day. Today, I will be discussing with you few tips and tricks of getting published in SCI or Scopus Journals. As we all know that PhD is not an easy journey. It is not an easy task for you scholars to get past through the screening stages and finally reach the stage of acceptance of your paper and finally getting your paper published. I totally agree with you that you have to face a lot of hurdles while passing through the stages and going through different screenings and peer reviews and many other reviews by the editors before your paper gets the stage of publishing. So with this webinar, we are trying to focus on few pointers through which you can get to know about the ideas which you should make a note and avoid so that your rejections get reduced while screening and chances of paper acceptance get increased. So let us discuss that what all things a scholar miss out during their journey. Basically, many scholars make silly mistakes or miss out minute details due to which they have to face rejection and which waste a lot of their time while the process or the while through their journey of PhD. So what all points we need to make out and we need to consider while making a manuscript and we should be take in mind. So that points we will be discussing through this webinar. Let's start with the presentation now. And if you all are having any queries or you want to ask any questions, you can put your messages or questions in the chat box available here, and then our team members will be reverting you to that. And if you want to email us, you can also email us at phdhelp@5vidya.com. Then also you can connect to us through the email. So let's connect with the presentation. Can any of the attendees confirm me that are you able to view the screen? Can any one of you confirm me whether the screen is visible to you? Are you able to view the presentation? Okay, so let us start with the discussion further. If we follow the trends till now, you will be astonished and we will be knowing the fact that competition today have increased in the series of paper publishing. You may notice that universities have made it a prerequisite for publishing your paper as a PhD award. So even after conducting an in-depth discussion or in-depth paper, you can face rejections because editors do rigorous screening of your paper. Here with this webinar, I will be telling you few pointers to mark on or to make a note of so that you can avoid those unnecessary objections by the editors or the reviewers and move ahead towards paper publishing. Also, I would like you to make a note and consider this point that this deep, sorry. I would like to tell all you attendees that I have muted down the video so that you can load it up for who are not able to load it. Is it visible to everyone? So I was telling you a important point to make a note of, that these tips and tricks which I will be discussing with you will be of use to you if and only if your research is contributing to the area of your research. If it is not adhering to the area of your research, then these tips will be of no use to it. So with this webinar, the points you will be taking out will be, first, how do journals review your manuscript? Basically, we will be discussing that what all things a reviewer make a note or checks while reviewing your manuscript, what all pointers they check in your paper, and why the journals reject so many manuscripts. And with this discussion, you will be getting points that what all tips you should follow so that you can avoid those rejection which a reviewer can mark on your paper. Okay, and later on I will be telling you how you can locate a journal for yourself. And also with this webinar we will be giving you some takeaways, that will be that we will be giving you a list of Scopus index journals from different domains which you can review, and we will be sending the list to all you attendees to your communication address. And for that you can drop us an email at our email ID phdhelp@5vidya.com with your correspondence address and details, so that our team members can courier you with the list ahead. Also, we will be giving you an additional benefit which you may be getting an idea of at the end of the presentation. Moving ahead. So moving ahead with the presentation. The first point which we were discussing was that how do journals review your manuscript? Like what all points they are making out while reviewing your paper. With this, I would like to tell you that one of the astonishing fact, that is, out of 10 submissions that are made to a journal, only one passed through the screening stages and reached the final stage of paper publishing. Now here a question arises, why so much rejection? Why only one paper has reached the final stage of submission? This is because the number of submissions is very high. If you see from the past trends, you will notice that the competition has increased a lot, and the statistics show that the number of submissions is very large as compared to the number of papers which passes through the screening and finally gets published. So you have to face a lot of competition in your journey of PhD paper publishing. And with this, and through this journey, you may also face 80% of the you will also see that 80% of the manuscripts get rejected at the initial desk screening stage. So you have to be extra careful while preparing your manuscript so that you can avoid those desk rejections. And even after, if you pass those desk rejection, it does not mean that reaching the stage of peer review will be the end of the journey and your paper is published. No, it can also be a possibility that your paper gets rejected at a peer review stage. So you have to be extra careful during that stage also, and move ahead with being very cautious. Moving ahead, I am trying to show with this picture that how many hurdles you have to pass in your PhD journey while getting your paper published, and through the final submission stage, you have to face a lot many hurdles. Let us move ahead by discussing those stages which you might be facing during your review process. The review process of a journal involves screening at first 3 stages. These first 3 stages can also be called initial screening or desk screening stages. The stage 1, 2, and 3, in these 3 stages, your paper gets reviewed by junior editor, or you can also call the attendees, assistants. The stage 2 involves review by sub-editors, and the stage 3 by the review of chief editors or the editor-in-chief. And you might be astonished of the fact that almost 80% of the submissions get rejected at these 3 stages only and are unable to reach the stage of peer review, which I can understand can be a huge disappointment for you scholars. So you have to be extra careful. And after, if you are lucky enough to reach the stage of peer review, you finally get your result or your decision of acceptance and paper publishing. Now, I would like to tell you one more thing, that if you see, every journal has their editor-in-chief or the chief editors, which below them have a team of sub-editors. And those sub-editors further have the editors in junior and or the assistants who review your paper. So these are the 3 stages which have to be cleared before reaching the stage of peer review. Moving ahead with a statistics of the submission results, which you all do, as we all do submissions before our PhD paper publishing. These results show us that almost out of 100 papers which are submitted, almost 80% of the papers are rejected in the first 3 initial screening stage, which I already told you earlier. And out of these 80 rejected, you are left with only 20 papers. And moreover, out of these 20 papers, 12 get rejected at the peer review stage, and left are those 8% which are extraordinarily good and finally get accepted to be published. Moving ahead with the stage-wise distribution of desk rejections. This pie chart depicts that almost 44% of the submissions get rejected at the stage 1, which was a review by junior editor or the assistants, and remaining 30% at the stage 2, which is by the review of sub-editors, and last are those and remaining which are getting rejected by the editor-in-chief or the chief editors. So this was the data analysis for the stage-wise distribution of desk rejections. Moving ahead, I will be telling you a few points which junior editors keep in mind, or the pointers which junior editors check in your submission and mark you accordingly and give you a result of rejection or acceptance. Stage 1, review by junior editors, involves check by softwares. Basically, those junior editors and assistants check your submission or your manuscript using different softwares. And these softwares further check different criteria in your paper, which can be a language check, a formatting check, a check of scope of your paper, and plagiarism check. First, let us discuss with the scope. Scope is basically, it means here that if your manuscript is not in line with the scope of the journal or the paper you are submitting, then it will be of no use. And moving ahead, that if the language you are using in your paper is having errors, grammatical errors, or other editorial errors, then it will be rejected then and there only. Those junior editors will be also checking that if your paper is adhering to the formatting guidelines of the journal in which you are making a submission. Later on, they will be checking a plagiarism, whether your paper is plagiarized or not. So any carelessness here can lead to then and there rejection, and rejection at stage 1 will be highly disappointing and will also waste a lot of time of yours. So be very careful while preparing your manuscript. Next is the stage of review by sub-editors. That is your stage 2 screening. The sub-editors check your submission or your manuscript by whether your topic you are using is relevant or not. Either it is meeting the expectation of the reader, or the topic you are using is novel or somewhat an old topic. Then you should be careful firstly you should be careful while using your topic, so that it meets the expectation of the reader and creates their interest. Then only they will be reading your submission further. And also you should make a note or be careful that the topic you are selecting should contribute to the area of your research, or any carelessness here will lead to rejection at stage 2. So if you are lucky enough to pass the first 2 stages, that is stage 1, review by the junior editors, and then the review by sub-editors, then if you are lucky enough to pass these 2 stages, then you can consider that half of your battle is won. Almost you have covered 50% of your PhD journey. But I would like to make a note here also that basic errors which you scholars make in these 2 stages is that the editorial errors. Many scholars make carelessness or they miss out the minute details due to which their paper get rejected at these 2 basic initial stages. So be very careful in that editorial part so that you can at least clear your 50% battle. Fine. So moving ahead to stage 3. Stage 3 is your review by the chief editor or the editor-in-chief. Here I would like to tell you that if your paper gets rejected at stage 3, it means that you will be getting a clear view, a clear picture of the missing elements of your paper, because a chief editor keeps a check on the data you are providing through your submission, the analysis is done is apt or not, the methodology you are using is appropriate or not, the motive of your research is also taken care of, and the conclusions you are giving should be apt and relating to the research you are taking. So you should be careful while choosing a sample size in your analysis or in your submission. You should not use old methodology that has been surpassed, and your hypothesis should be clear and conclusions should be based on the assumptions. If you clear all the 3 stages, the first 3 stages of screening, that is the desk screening stage, then you are lucky enough that you have cleared the initial screening and now you have reached the stage of peer review. After this initial screening, if you see the statistics, you will get to know that hardly 20% of the submissions finally are sent for peer review. Now, coming ahead of peer review, here I would like to add that if you are having any questions or any queries, you can drop your messages in the chat box available. Our team members will be giving you the revert. Also, you can email us at our email ID phdhelp@5vidya.com. Also, I would like to remind you that you can also drop us your correspondence address at our email ID, and we will be sending you a list of Scopus Index journals at your communication address. So let us continue with the presentation. We were at the point of a peer review stage. Peer review basically is done by 3 different ways. it can be a single blinded, double blinded, and open peer review. By blinded peer review, I mean to say that you authors are unaware of the reviewer. Like, you do not know that but the reviewer knows that who is the author of the paper. And the second one is double blind. In this, both the author and the reviewer are unaware of each other. Like, neither the reviewer knows who is the writer of the paper, and nor you authors know about the reviewer, that who is reviewing or checking your paper. Fine. The other one is open peer review. Open peer review means both you, the authors, and the reviewers know about each other. So here basically the criteria which is taken, that minimum of 2 experts are chosen for reviewing your paper, and once they are through with it, they submit their results, their recommendations, their comments about your submission to the journal for further results. So you should be careful in this also, because there are almost 20% chances of a paper getting rejected at this stage only. Now comes the final decision. Like, you have cleared all the stages of your screening, and finally you have reached the stage of your decision. And now the decision can be of different types. It can be first, acceptance without any changes. Here it is like your paper is extraordinarily good. It means that it has no grammatical errors, no editorial issues, the scope is in line of the journal, the formatting guidelines you are following, and frankly speaking, this will be a rare case that your paper is accepted by a journal without requirement of any revision. So coming next to the result, it can be acceptance with minor revision. This is also an acceptance of your paper by the journal, but the journal has asked you to make certain revisions in your paper, and then it will be published. Next comes the point of acceptance with major revisions. With this point, I like to tell you that it is a kind of conditional acceptance, which comes with an if clause, that the journal has marked a point that if all these revisions are done in your paper, then only it will be submitted for publishing. Or if there is any error in this, then you will be required to do revisions again. The next result can be revise and resubmit. Here the result means that your paper is asked for certain revisions. It is a kind of conditional rejection by the journal, that all these revisions are required in your paper, and if these revisions are up to the mark or adhering to the guidelines of the journal, then only your paper will be submitted for publishing. And the last one is the outright rejection, where your paper is not considered at all. So moving ahead after this, here I would like to show you with a video with the why the journals reject so many manuscripts. Next point which we will be discussing is, why do journals reject so many manuscripts? Basically, what is the reason behind there's so many rigorous rejection and so rigorous screening by the reviewers? Here I would like to add that, as we have already discussed in the beginning of the presentation, that competition is pretty intense, that number of submission is very huge as compared to the number of publications. So one thing which we all as a scholar should keep in mind, that we should avoid silly mistakes while drafting our paper, so that we can avoid those rejections, those early rejections, and can pass on the hurdles and move ahead. So how can you get ahead of the crowd? How can your paper be different from the other submissions and pass on the hurdles? For this, let's discuss some tips, so that let's make out some points so that we can avoid those basic rejections. First point, which all you scholars can keep in mind, that you should follow your editor. Here, what I mean is that first, before starting with your manuscript, you can take a look with the articles of the journal you are targeting. You can have a look of the articles. By this, you will be getting an idea of the guidelines which your journal, your target journal is adhering to, the formatting guidelines, the other things which your target journal is adhering to. And after that, you can also go ahead with taking one of the research papers, one of the articles of your editor as a base paper. It can be very helpful to you in a way that it can create the interest of the editor in your paper. It can increase his interest. So it can also be increasing your chances of acceptance, paper acceptance. Next comes the point of formatting, which is the editorial part, as this is the basic point which can lead to rejection at stage 1 itself. So you should be careful while making a manuscript, like you should be careful of the formatting guidelines which your journal is targeting, which your journal is providing you. So it is very important to read, understand and follow the submission guidelines of your target journal, as this can lead to 40% of rejection at stage 1 itself. So be very careful while preparing your manuscript. Here I can give you an example of a journal, that Biome Central. In this web portal, they are listing out the formatting guidelines which you should follow, the manuscript text, illustrations, figures, which should be how it can be presented. So also I'm providing you with the link below, which you can see for the Biome Central. Next comes the point of ethical compliance or plagiarism. Here I have already discussed that plagiarism is a big no. You should totally avoid this, because at the initial screening, the 30% failure of submission is due to the plagiarism or the ethical compliance. So it should top your list to make a check that your paper is not plagiarized. The tips you can follow here is that you should not make multiple submissions of your paper. For this, I can explain you that, for example, you have prepared a paper and you have given it to 2-3 journals for submission, for simultaneous submission, which should be avoided, as it can lead to rejection. Also, you should take care that if your paper is previously published, either in partly or fully, until and unless you are making expansion of the work concerns of your previous work, you should not submit your manuscript for submission, for publication. Next is the point that you should not fabricate or manipulate the data to support your conclusions. Also, you should refrain from the practice of salami slicing. Here comes the question, what is salami slicing? Salami slicing is basically, I can explain you this with an example, that if you have chosen a topic, or you have taken a research or article which is very vast, and what you do is you scholars divide it into 3 or more parts, and with 3 or those chunks you are preparing 2-3 submissions and making it submitting for publication, which is a big no. You should avoid that. Or after that, you should also obtain consent to submit from all the co-authors or the other responsible authorities before your submission. Another points I would like to include is that plagiarism should be avoided, and you should take acknowledgement to others' work when paraphrased. And if you are using any copyrighted material, you should secure permissions for that, and use proper results and present it in a good manner. Next comes the point of presentation of visual elements. Visual elements includes the pictures, the analysis, the graphics, the illustrations you are giving in your submission. It should be clear. First thing you should make a note that the images, the pictorial data you are giving in your submission, it should be clear and valid. It should be adhering to the research you are giving. So presentation failure to present any of the visual factors in an inappropriate manner can lead to rejection. The tips you can follow here is that you should follow the guidelines outlined in your target journal about the inclusion of the figures, the images, the tables. The clarity of the images used should be good, and you should refrain from copy pasting the data from directly from the internet. Okay, the numbering, the bullets should be, formatting size should be very clear, and it should be very in a good manner. Here I am giving you an example of a picture which is not very clear. It is of very low clarity. So you can also take a better alternative for that, so that your image is clear and pictorial data is presented in a good manner. Next comes the point of language edit. Statistics of, if you see the statistics of Elsevier journal, it will reveal that over 55% of the articles submitted to the Elsevier are rejected even at the first stage because of the language errors, the grammatical errors, or the other editorial errors. So you should be very careful in that, because this can lead to rejection at any of the stage 1, 2, and 3 screening. The tips you can follow here is that your quality of writing of manuscript should be good, as the reviewers here prefer high quality writing in your manuscripts. The clarity of the terms should be there, and you should use a fresh perspective while preparing your manuscript. And if none of this works, you can take help from a professional copy editing firm. You can also take help from us for that. If you want help in any of your stage, you can email a stage of your PhD journey. You can email us at phdhelp@5vidya.com. We will be helping you out for this. Here I am depicting an example of a text which is mentioned, and after a round 1 check, you can see that the highlighted parts, the basic grammatical errors which are highlighted, whether the letter is in uppercase or lowercase, and after the round 2 screening, you can see the major revisions done in that sample. Next comes the point of a cover letter. Cover letter is basically a very important part in your submission. It leads to almost 20% rejections at stage 3, because if we note that the editor-in-chief or the chief editors do not have much time, they can judge your paper by your cover letter. If you are not giving a good cover letter, they can reject your paper right out there. So you should be very careful while preparing a cover letter for your submission. Points here to be noted is that your cover letter should be it should be convincing the editor why he should read your paper, why he should read your submission. Because if we can also say that a cover letter is like a marketing tool. So it should be very clear, it should convince your editor, it should be depicting the things which you are trying to depict in your research. So you should not copy paste the data directly. Also, the scholars make a mistake here. What they do is they use a same cover letter for submission in 2-3 journals. What they do is, once their paper get rejected, they use the same cover letter for submitting their paper second time to another journal. And in this, they make a very silly mistake. They forget to change the name of the journal and make other changes, which can give a very bad impact on the editor. So you should follow that. Next, I will be telling you what all you can include in a cover letter. What all points you should make a note for this. First, you should write the editor names if it is known to you and the name of the journal in which you are targeting. Then you can mention the manuscript title, the submission date, and the article type. Also, a brief background of your study should be given in it, and with basic details like the research question, the overview of the methodology, the findings, conclusions in your letter. Also, other disclosures and statements, if required by the journal, you should mention that in your cover letter. Moving ahead, I will be telling you that what all points you should avoid while adding in your cover letter. You should not use jargons or acronyms in your cover letter. It is not a good, it does not give a good impact to the editor. Also, you should avoid adding humor to it because it can go in a negative way. If you you should also avoid exaggeration of your findings in your paper, in your cover letter. Here I am, you can see an example of a poor cover letter on your screens where the details are not mentioned properly, the background, the overview is not given in a good manner. And now comes an example of a good cover letter in which the name of the editor is mentioned, the name of the journal is mentioned, date properly mentioned, and the overview is given. Other minute details are also taken care of in this. You can go through the video and have a look at the example of a good cover letter. Next comes the point of the abstract. Abstract here means that if a displeasing abstract is given in your submission, it leads to outright rejection. Means if you go by the statistics here out, you will see that 1 out of every 5 rejections in the peer review are due to poor abstract. So abstract is the first thing which a reviewer checks while checking your paper. Now, what all ingredients you can add in a good abstract? The first thing you should make a note is that the aim and the scope of study should be mentioned clearly. The key problems should be addressed. The methodology you are using, it should be mentioned in that. Data findings, your key findings should be mentioned in your abstract, and the limitations and implications of your theory. Here is an example of a poorly written abstract in which it is written in the first person only. So it is not the right thing. You should not write your abstract in first person. In this example, the results are not presented properly. The details are not given properly. Here is an example of a well-written abstract in which the conclusions are mentioned clearly and also in a brief manner. The findings are mentioned, and it is a good example to refer to. Now comes the point of presentation of your results. How you should present the results, the conclusion of your research. If we see here, we all know that the chief editors or the editor-in-chiefs do not have much time. They have a limited time to review your manuscript. So they might not be giving a detailed reading to your submission. So for this, you should make it easier for the editor. So by presenting your conclusions in an apt manner, in a logical way, so that any non-adherence here can lead to outright rejection. The tips here, you can have it like you should not mention your results in a standalone manner. You can have a comparative study of your results so that it is easy for your reviewer to go through. Here we can have an example which I have taken is I have taken a target journal of Elsewhere journal, and two cases I can give you, in which the first case the base paper taken is of IEEE transaction paper, and in another case I am taking the base paper of my target journal only. And in case one, the results mentioned by the scholar is standalone results, and in case two, a comparative study is shown, which might increase the interest and which reduces the chance of rejection by the editor. Next comes the point of how you can look for alternative journals. So far we have discussed the points so that your submission becomes is superb, that how you can avoid those minute details, minute mistakes which are done. Now let us come to the fact that and accept that if our research is average and we know it, then what will we do? How to target a journal and get our paper published then also? What an alternative we can do is, here, rather than focusing on top 15 journals, what we can do is we can focus on the top 50 journals. Here I mean to say that rather than focusing on top 15 journals, it will give you high competition. And if you are trying to focus on the top 50 journals, there will be less hassle. The journal will still be an SCI or Scopus journal. So there is not a problem if you target the top 50 journals rather than being in top 15, because being in top 15 might increase your chance of getting paper rejected. So you can also target those among any of the journal among those top 50. As this will increase your acceptance rate by 30%. So how can you locate your journal? Starting with searching for SCI and SSCI journals. SCI and SSCI journals, you can go to the website which I have mentioned here for the clarivate.com. Here you will be getting a list of journals on Science Citation Index, Social Science Citation Index, which is your SSCI journals, and Arts and Humanities Citation Index. You can search for the journals by using this website. Alternatively, you can also download the entire list of SCI or SSCI journals as well, for which I have mentioned the links below, which is for the SCI journals separately, for the SSCI journals, and also for the Arts and Humanities Citation Index journals. You can directly copy this link and download a entire list of the journals. Moving ahead, for how to search a journal pertaining to your subject category. For that, go to the same site of clarivate.com, and from this you can see a point here of journal list below the search option. Here you can select the Science Citation Index expanded. On clicking on this, you will be having a list where you can select your subject category, and from that you can select an article for you. On clicking on that point, you will be getting 4 options. The first will be to how to find a specific journal by a title words or ISSN. The second option will give you all list of journals. The third will be providing you with a list of journals covered in a specific category. And the last option will be giving you a list of journals coverage changes. Moving ahead with how you can locate your journal in Scopus Journals. Till now we are done with SCI and SSCI journals. Now I will be telling you that how can you locate your journal for Scopus Journals. Searching for Scopus Journal, you can, for example, you can take the Scopus's Elsevier abstract and citation database. It covers over 38,000 titles from about 11,500 plus publishers from different fields like life science, physical science, health science, and many others. It covers 3 types of sources, which can be book series, journals, and trade journals. Scopus gives different quality of measures. However, the site score is also mentioned here, which you can refer. And a journal with a high site score will have a higher impact. So with wrapping up ahead, we have discussed how we can search out for list of journals in SCI and SSCI journals. Then we have discussed how we can search out for journals in Scopus Index, and how you can search on the site and search a paper for yourself. And also I would like to tell you that the list, we will be providing you with a list of Scopus Index journals from different domains by and you might have sent it your communication address at our email box phdhelp@5vidya.com. Our team members will be sending you a list of Scopus Index journals from different domains to you. So let's wrap up with it. Thank you.